Hello, affiliated dermatology. This is Rowdy Duncan. I am a communication faculty at Phoenix College, and I'm very excited to talk to you today. I very much wish you had the ability to attend the in-portion session that I had delivered in October 7th, but I still think this recording is something fantastic, and I think you're going to get a lot of interest and value out of this as well. But with that, I wanted to take us to this little video that I think is going to be an excellent primer for what we're going to be talking about today, and that is active listening. Listening is showing that you love, and we don't know you care until you show that you care. So I think this video, again, is a great way of kind of kicking this thoughts and ideas off. So let's go ahead and play that.
Okay, fine, I will listen.
Sometimes, like, there's achy. I don't know what is pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. If you would just...
Don't...
try to say things.
I absolutely love that video. For me, the moment where I just can't handle my stuff anymore is when she's like, and all my sweaters are snagged. Like, what? Because the truth of it is at times we are the person with the nail, and we just want people to hear and listen to us and validate that whatever we're going through is normal, and that's okay, and that, it's okay to feel like this. And then at times we're just like, just take the nail out of your head. Like, what is wrong with you? And that comes from the fact that we're not really taught how to listen or how to listen well. We just know what it feels like when it's there, and we know what it's like when it's not there. So part of the reason why listening gets so complicated is because we listen at a rate of 125 to 250 words per minute, but we think at a rate of 1,000 to 3,000 words per minute. 75% of the time, we are distracted, we are preoccupied, we are forgetful whenever we're talking with folks. And 20% of the time, we remember what we hear. 20% of the time, we remember what we hear. 20% of the time, we remember what we hear. 20% of the time, we remember what we hear. 20% of the time, we remember what we hear. That's what it took for you to hear that enough times to remember to hear it. So again, when we're talking about this stuff, it's complicated and it's difficult. And also, less than 2% of all people in the world have had any formal training in listening. And this is why we have the problem. It's something that's critical. It's something that's incredibly important. But we also haven't been taught how to do it or how to do it correctly. One of the things we also need to understand is that hearing and listening are not the same thing. Hearing is a physiological function. Hearing is involuntary. Hearing requires no sense of understanding or no ability to give and send a response back. Whereas listening is a mental process. It takes effort, it is active, and it entails comprehending what is being said, what's being told to you, as well as responding back. Like, it's not enough to just be like passively hearing. You need to show your hearing, because that's when people feel heard. Now, there's another concept that I want to introduce to you because I think it's something that's important, and I believe it's something that's a lost art. And this is a concept known as civil listening. Its definition is, it's also known as confirming listening. It is a listening style that communicates our belief in the quality and humanness and value that exists in every inherent human being. Active listening is the most type of is the most civil type of listening because you must acknowledge emotions and feelings. So if you're going to attempt to do civil listening, you need to plan to listen. Your one goal is listen. One of my things my partner does when she's having a hard day and she doesn't want me to go into fix-it mode is she just says, all I need you to do is listen. Just listen and hear me out. And I go, okay. And then I know my only job is listen and make sure I'm dialed in. Then you need to demonstrate listening. You need to like show eye contact. Look at that person. Nod. Go like this or be like, I don't know. Or, what? Like all those little things are those things that show that you're listening and show that you're dialed in and show that you really care. And then be prepared to become fully involved with the speaker. Be prepared to process information fully. Be fully able to paraphrase. And when we do this in person, we're going to do a paraphrasing activity that I think is an excellent way to show that you're listening and practice really listening so you're actually dialed in and ready to go. Listening is also a 5-step process. It entails receiving, attending, understanding, responding, and recalling. You need to be able to do all 5 of those steps to make sure that someone heard you and you heard them correctly. So with that, I'm going to go show this little video about how to improve your listening with some little hints, tips, and tricks that I believe will help you quite a bit. Of course it's buffering, right? Because I'm recording, so why wouldn't it buffer? Let me try hitting the pause and then just see what, oh, here we go. There it goes.
Think about how much information you get every day from listening. Your boss, your colleagues, your clients, and your suppliers may communicate with you often. So will your family and friends. How much of what all these people say do you pay attention to? How much are you actually remembering from these conversations? Chances are, it's a lot less than you think. A lot of times we act as if we're listening to the other person, but the reality is that our minds are racing to other topics or already planning what we're going to say in return. This means that we can miss important things that the other person is saying. Active listening is when you make a conscious effort to hear and understand people so that you get the complete message. There are several things you can do to become an active listener. First, you need to pay attention. We know this is a bit obvious, but it's the most important part of active listening. For instance, make eye contact with the person talking to you. Ignore outside factors like other conversations so that you can focus solely on what the person is saying. Most importantly, put your own thoughts on hold. Resist the urge to start planning out what you're going to say in return. You also need to show the other person that you're listening to them. You can nod your head, smile, and say yes occasionally. All of these signals let the other person know you're still with them. Providing feedback on what the other person has just said is another important part of active listening. For instance, all of us hear information through our own personal filters and judgments. This can affect our understanding. To make sure you heard and understood the message correctly, paraphrase it or repeat it back to the person. You can also ask questions to get more information. But make sure that you listen to what they're saying before you plan your response. You also need to avoid interrupting when they are speaking. Once they're finished, you can respond appropriately and with an honest answer or opinion. Active listening is a skill that all of us should use more often. The better you are at listening, the more information you'll receive. This can pay off with big rewards in your career and strengthen your bonds with family and friends. You can find out more about active listening in the article that accompanies this video.
So with that, there's only one other caveat that I would add to that is perhaps don't attempt to add your opinion. What I would like to challenge you to do is attempt to listen so well, so closely, so amazingly well that they want to know what your opinion is, right? If you'll know you've listened well when they're like, so what do you think? I'm going to challenge you to do that because when we've really listened and listened deeply, people do want to hear from us, but you know you've done it well when they ask what your opinion is. So going back to that 5 steps of listening and the process that we go through, first one is Receiving. Again, hearing happens when we get the sound vibrations that travel along our acoustic nerves to our brain. That is a physical process. What we want to do is receive, like tune in. So for example, listen really closely now. Is the fan going for the AC right now? Do you notice any road noises? Are they doing construction outside? Is your dog like trying to get in? Like my dog's not, he's sleeping with my partner right now. But is there anything that like is happening that you could be hearing, but you're not really tuned into, right? So the first part of being able to listen is really starting to tune in, really starting to get a sense of like what's there, who's saying what. Like too often we're tuned into a thing called WIIFM. WIIFM is what's in it for me. What's in it for you and listening to someone else is this is someone that you care about. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be taking the time to be in this conversation. And be aware of noise pollution. Noise pollution is other sounds, things that get in the way of the message. Noise pollution would be like if you're at a bar and there's music playing and it's hard to hear. Too much noise pollution can cause hearing impairment. Hearing impairment is one of those things that can last forever and can be an issue forever. And so make sure that you're taking care of that as well. Next thing that we need to do is attend. So in the second step of the listening process, this is attending. This is being like, okay, I need to listen, right? So it is devoting and paying attention to the information that you've received. We have to be aware of a couple different things that go on with this process. And the first one is you need to understand that there's this idea called salience. Salience is a factor that determines the extent of your attending. So salience is what are we interested in and what are we not interested in. So if someone's talking about a thing, like say someone wants to talk to you about sailboats and you're like, oh, I'm not interested in sailboats. Like your salience is going to be low in that area because you really don't care about sailboats. Whereas if they're talking about your favorite TV show, you're going to be really tuned in because you like your favorite TV show. You probably like the person that you're going to be talking to. And so you really want to be tuned into talking with that person. What we need to be aware of is every time someone talks to you, this is what's known in the Gottman Institute. The Gottman folks are some amazing communication people, like some of my superheroes. The Gottmans say every time someone attempts to talk to you, it's like a bid for attention, right? They're like, hey, this is my bid to you to see if you're interested in me, if you care about me. If we can recognize that every time someone's trying to talk to you, they're bidding for your attention. They're seeing if you care enough to listen to them. This is a really great way to notice it's not about whatever the subject they're attempting to talk to you about is. It's about, do you care enough to listen to me no matter what the topic is, right? So it doesn't matter if we're interested in the subject or not. What we need to pay attention to is this is a bid for connection, a bid to get closer to you, a bid to see if your relationship matters to them or not, right? And so when we recognize the opportunity to listen is a bid for connection, is a bid for creating a deeper relationship, a deeper connection with someone, then we can attend better because we know that this is more than, you know, this little kid talking about show and tell at school today. It's about, do you care about what happened to me in show and tell today? Because it's interesting. Things that you might not be, you know, like they say, like toddlers will talk about anything forever, but then they become teenagers and then you can never get them to talk and you wonder why they don't care about your opinion. Perhaps some of those unreceived bids at a younger age made them believe that you don't care anyway. And if you don't care, well, why should I even think you're going to listen? Another thing that we can attempt to do is limit our multitasking. Limiting multitasking really, really gives us the ability to improve our attention. So we can't be like texting or looking at our phone and really paying clear attention. Multitasking is doing two things badly, or at least, at the very least, worse than you could be if you were focusing. If you focused on one or the other of those things, you could get one or the other of those things completed and finished in a much better way if you just gave it individual attention and focus. Individual attention and focus on texting and completing the text message conversation would get that finished, or completing the conversation that you're in with the person that's there, One of the things that I think is just like not the best customer service practice is making the in-person person, like if you have a client that's coming to talk to you in person, stopping that in-person person talking to you to get the phone, I don't know is a great practice. You might have one person on the phones and one person for the in-person people, because clearly the person that's in front of you is probably the more important client because they're there already. They're spending money already. They're setting an appointment already. They're already a patient or looking to become a patient. Yes, I understand the phone person could be a patient, but that is a potential patient, not a for sure patient, not a for sure client, right? So a little bit more on how we might be able to limit our multitasking is going to be in this video here.
Let's talk about multitasking. As you surely know, kids do a lot of it. In fact, a recent survey indicated that kids spend 7.5 hours each day using electronic devices, and most of that time they're multitasking. Question: does all that multitasking mean that kids today are better at multitasking? Or maybe even that doing just one thing at a time is kind of boring? Well, it is true that older people are not as good at multitasking as younger people are. But that doesn't mean that today's kids are especially good at it, and it sure doesn't mean that they need to multitask. For starters, how do we multitask? Suppose I'm trying to write a history paper and simultaneously carry on an instant messaging conversation with a friend. Attention isn't really shared. I'm switching attention between two tasks. Of course, the way that I write when I'm IMing a friend is different than the way I write a history paper. In other words, when you do two tasks, the rules for doing them are probably different. So when you do two things at once, there's always a cost, because every time you switch attention, you forget where you were in the other task and what the goals were. Switching between tasks is easier if you can keep a lot of stuff in mind simultaneously, or if you're good at redirecting your attention quickly. Now, young people are better at those two things than older people are. No one's sure why. So young people are better multitaskers than older people. But young people didn't get better just by doing a lot of multitasking. Take a kid who says he multitasks a lot, and another kid who says she doesn't. Now bring them into the laboratory and test their ability to multitask. They're both equally good at it. Most important, when your brain is doing something and you add a second task, it always costs you something on the first task. Even just having the TV on as background noise? Yeah, studies show that homework is of lower quality when kids do it with the TV on. Now, music may be an exception, but the data there are mixed. Some studies show that listening to music is just fine. Some studies show that music without lyrics is just fine. And some studies show that music is always bad. The general conclusion is clear. Kids are better at multitasking than adults, but that's probably always been true. There's no reason to think that there's anything unusual or special about this generation. And there's always a cost to doing things simultaneously. If you want to do something well, it's best to focus on one task at a time.
And that's always true, because the cost of attention switching is a lot and way more than we expect it to be. So continuing on a little bit more with attending, another thing that you can do is elevating your attention, right? Getting a sense of being like, oh, okay, I need to tune in. What you're saying matters. You're someone that's important to me. This is a bid for attention. This is something that I need to tune into. Our relationship's important, right? Like remembering these things will help you tune in and focus. Another thing you can do is a thing called mental bracketing. And that is like seeing when a thought comes up and being like, that's not important right now. Focusing here is, right? So if I'm talking to you and I'm like, oh man, I still need to pick up tomatoes for dinner tonight. That's not important right now. I need to tune into who's talking so I can really focus on what's being said, because the person I'm with right now and giving them my true focus and attention is what matters the most, right? Mental bracketing, becoming aware of when things come up, and then setting those things aside when they happen, right? Definitely going to help you a lot. Another thing that we're going to use when we're trying to make sure that we're listening and listening well is understanding. That's attempting to interpret meaning. So we all know that long-term memory is much more anchored in our brain than short-term memory is. When we lose our memory, when we come to a place where we start losing memory, if we start losing short-term memory, that's the hardest memory to hold on to. New information is housed in short-term memory as compared to long-term memory. And recognizing that our short-term memory is much worse than our long-term memory is critical if we're going to attempt to understand things correctly, right? So we need to focus and get a sense of what is being said and do I understand what's being said. That's why paraphrasing, responding, which is coming up next, is so important. If you don't respond in your own words, showing that you understand the idea, then maybe we're going to have a false understanding, or maybe we won't remember what we think we understood correctly. Responding, next to last step. Sorry. The fourth step is responding, conveying your attention, right? Showing that you paid attention and your understanding after someone shares. So there's a couple different parts of that thing. First one is feedback, and that's given while others talk. Oh, really? Or no. Little things that show that we're tuned in. What do you think? I don't know. Right? Those little things are feedback. It shows that we're listening. We may be listening, but there's no evidence we're listening. We need to show we're listening. We need to show concern. Like all those little things are pieces of feedback, and it shows them we care, right? Back channel cues are signals that you've paid attention to and understand specifics. No. I can't believe it. All those little things, right? Show that you're into it. Shows that you matter. Then the other thing that we need to do at the end is paraphrase. That's summarizing others' comments after they finish talking. Now, parroting and paraphrasing are two different things, right? If you tell me, I didn't fill up the coffee machine, and I say, you're telling me I didn't fill up the coffee machine, that's me parroting the same words back to you, right? What I would probably want to do if I was paraphrasing is, you're letting me know I didn't fill up the coffee machine again, and that you would appreciate if I do that in the future, because there's no coffee in there for you, right? Now I've taken their thoughts and feelings into account, and I found a way to make the thoughts and ideas my own ideas, using my own words, which probably have a better chance of moving that from my short-term to my long-term memory, which is going to aid in that last step, and that is recalling. The fifth step of listening is recalling, being able to remember that information. Mnemonic is a way that we can use cheating like little device to remember what's being told to us. So mnemonics is like Roy G. Biv. I think that's all the colors of the rainbow, right? Like if you remember Roy G. Biv, you can remember all the colors of the rainbow. Those little devices help us quite a bit. I'm also going to show you how to use mnemonics to aid in listening retention with this short video as well.
There are certainly ways to improve your overall ability to remember information, like getting more sleep or taking B12 vitamins, but this video is not about those tricks. It's about a type of memory tricks called mnemonics. But what is a mnemonic? Well, mnemonics are memory tricks that can help you remember long strings of information, often in a particular order. Mnemonic devices have helped people achieve phenomenal feats in the world of memory, from memorizing 40,000 digits of pi to knowing the order of a whole deck of cards. You can use them to help you remember phone numbers, create a more secure password, or maybe, one day, break a world record. So let's start off with chunking. If you've watched my video explaining short-term memory, you have already heard a little bit about this mnemonic device. See, short-term memory storage can only hold 5 to 9 items of information at a time, but this storage can also hold up to 4 chunks of information. The process of chunking information is explained in the name. If you're given multiple pieces of information to memorize, chunk it up into groups. Now, the groups could be based on the position in which you learn the information, similarities between the pieces of information that you need to memorize, or anything that helps you remember the information. One common example of chunking is the way that we memorize phone numbers. We split the 10 numbers into 3 chunks. First, the 3-digit area code, then the next 3 digits of the actual number, and then the last 4 digits of the number. Even if you can't normally remember 10 numbers in sequential order, you are likely to remember 3 chunks of information. Number 2 is an acronym. Now, an acronym is a simple abbreviation for a list of information that makes the phrase ordering easier to remember. So think back to your grade school days. Do you remember what PEMDAS means? Go back to even further. Preschool. What does Roy G. Biv stand for? These are examples of acronyms. See, it's not easy to remember parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction in order on a math test when you first learned it. But PEMDAS is just one word. 10 years after your last math class, PEMDAS is likely to stick. That's the beauty of an acronym. It's a single word, or maybe a phrase, or a title, but it reveals a lot of information that you otherwise would not have been able to remember in the correct order. Let's move on to number 3. Some people don't remember PEMDAS. They remember it as, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. If you were taught this trick to remember how to solve math problems, you weren't using an acronym. You were using something called an acrostic to help you remember information in an important order. An acrostic is when you turn an acronym into a sentence to increase the likelihood of recalling it by giving it just a bit more meaning. Take a moment to think of some other examples of acrostics. Every good boy does fine is probably familiar to people who took an elementary school music class. My very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas is also a great way to remember the order of the planets in our solar system from the sun. Usually, the sillier and the more unique that they are, the easier they are to remember. Now, this is also a great method in creating a secure password. Try to think of a quote from a movie that you like, one that would be easy to recall. For example, the famous line, "May the Force be with you" from Star Wars. Now, that sentence is likely too long or too easy to be a password, but MTFBWU is a more random password that is easy for you to remember, but more difficult for someone to guess. If you add some numbers and another favorite quote, then the strength greatly increases. Number 4 is a memory palace. Now, you might be familiar with this mnemonic if you've ever watched Sherlock Holmes. Started with the ancient Greeks, a memory palace is a virtual palace in your mind where you associate items to objects in each room. See, most people start with their childhood house or a current house because they're most familiar with it. You go around to each room and you try to pick out 4 to 5 specific objects to remember. These are called your permanent items. And then once you have those memorized and you can easily recall them, for example, let's say the 3rd item in your 2nd room, and you can do that reliably, then you can move on to associating things with each permanent item. Humans have an associative memory, which is why this technique works so well for those who invest in it. If you want to remember the order of a deck of cards, you can do it pretty easily with a memory palace. You just assign each card to an object in your house using association, and you should be able to recall it with ease. But this mnemonic takes a lot of time and practice to develop, and it shouldn't be used for things that are time sensitive. However, it is great for knowing the order of lists that are larger than 10 items. I have a whole video coming out on this soon if you're interested, so go ahead and click that subscribe button if you aren't already. Number 5 is rhyming. Another mnemonic device that seems to work well, especially when we are children, is simply rhyming things. It works great with music too, and it works well with other pieces of information. So, when did Columbus sail the ocean blue? It was in 1492. Another example is the famous I before E except after C, even though there's like 20 exceptions to that rule. Lastly, we have number 6, which is rhythm and music. The last mnemonic I have for you guys is using music or a rhythmic beat. You might not know this, but Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and the ABC song, they have the same notes and rhythm. In fact, music is so great at helping people encode in memories. I did this cool little trick on my last vacation. I went down to Florida with my sister a couple months ago, and that's when Drake's Money in the Grave song came out. I listened to that song like 20 to 40 times while I was there, and it was stuck in my head. Then we came back from vacation, and now whenever I listen to that song, I'm always reminded of the beach and the salty, dry air. You can create your own song or reword lyrics to help you memorize something, because rhythm and musical notes work very well when encoding information in your long-term memory storage. One more thing I want to talk about in this video are famous mnemonists. If you're interested in learning more about mnemonics, I recommend that you look into...
We're not going to worry about the famous mnemonists because that's not what we're here for, but if you're interested in that, I embedded it in the slides, and I made those slides just for affiliated dermatology, so please go ahead and check that out if you're interested. Another thing that I invite you to take the time to look at is the video I embedded on Julie and Treasure on 5 ways to listen better. I actually am one of the 2% of folks that actually do know how to listen professionally. I've been taught professionally how to listen. And I can tell you part of the reason why I am able to secure the clientele that I have is because I get a sense when I meet them, I listen, I mental bracket, I take notes, I write down things. And then after they're done, I make a plan and I talk about how this is going to meet this need or concern they have. This activity of thought or idea is going to meet this need or goal that they have. It gives me the ability to get a sense of these are the 4 needs that you have. These are my plans and ideas of how we're going to accomplish the goal to meet these needs. And it's amazing because people go, wow, he really listened. Why? Because I took notes and I made sure that I made what you had to say to me my priority. So do check out Julian Treasure's 5 Ways to Listen Better. Again, we won't go over it in this video or podcast at this moment. Why do we listen? Well, first off, we listen for several different reasons, or the functions that we listen for, or we attempt to comprehend what's happening. What do I need to learn here? We listen to discern what are the differences between this thing, what's needing to be said. We listen to analyze or get a sense of what's happening. We listen to get a sense of like, why are you upset, or why are you angry, or why are you happy? We listen to appreciate. We listen because we appreciate music. And then sometimes we listen to support, right? We listen to let someone know that we care, that they matter, that what they're going through is important to us, right? Again, if you want a little bit more on the 5 functions of listening, check out Spirit Flesh. This video I think is also excellent. I'm going to just start it so you get a sense of how long that is. Only about 2 minutes, so I do think it's worthwhile to tune in and check it out. Another thing, right? Adapting your listening purpose, right? Another thing that you can do is adapting your purpose. Why do you listen? What do you do when you listen? And what is the purpose? What does the end goal of you listening mean? Or why is this important? An essential part of adaptive listening is adapting your purpose to the changing dynamics of your encounters, right? So we might want to ask questions that help give us a sense of like, what are people thinking or feeling when they're going things? We want to make sure that we listen in ways that build the esteem of the person that we're listening to, or build the relationship of the person that we connect to, right? We might want to listen to people at Affiliated Dermatology because we want to create a safe environment where people can bring forward conflict or problems so we can work on those conflict or problems together. We may want to create a cooperative conversation. We may want to get feedback that goes in both directions. We may want to challenge each other or disagree with each other, but do it in ways where people don't feel defensive, right? We may want to be much more careful in how we make suggestions or offer insight. I think too often we prescribe a solution to a problem without taking the time to properly diagnose a problem. What I think we do too often in this world is, if we're wearing glasses, we go, well, here, I have this problem with fuzzy vision and I wear glasses. So put my glasses on, and because I've had this problem before and I couldn't see things. So here, wear my glasses, and me slapping my glasses on you, my prescription, I'm going to make your prescription. And then we don't understand why their view's still fuzzy, because we haven't taken the time to really diagnose what they're seeing, where we haven't diagnosed and listened to things, right? So remember, a good listener is a sponge that absorbs things, and then also is a trampoline too, where you can bounce ideas off one another. Remember, we're going to make sure that we ask substantive questions. We want to make eye contact. We want to concentrate on being a safe space. We also want to observe the nonverbal cues, right? Like nodding, right? If someone says something, we do the old eye roll, we're communicating something when we do that thing. We need to understand the emotions behind an idea when those are communicated. Making sure that people hear and understand emotions is so critical and so important. We want to get a sense of empathy of where they're coming from and why they feel the way they do. And only after we deeply listen to someone would we want to offer advice. And then we want to wait and see if they'll ask us first. That is a key. It's one of those things that's going to take you to a next level as a listener. Parts of what can change how we listen is understanding our habitual pattern of listening, right? Some people are action-oriented listeners. They listen because they want to figure out what is the thing that we need to do after this thing is done, right? These are fixers. These are people that need to know what's going to happen next. So the point of them listening is to figure out the next plan of action because they're action-based people, right? Some people are time-based listeners. I can be a time-based listener, sometimes to my detriment, but sometimes to my benefit, right? I have a lot of students that want to talk to me, and they'll take a lot of time in needing to do so. If I'm busy, what I'll say is, look, I've got 10 minutes. I can give you a focused 10 minutes, but after 10 minutes, I need to get on to the next thing that I need to do. One, it sets boundaries of what I can and can't do. And another thing is, it also, if I'm a time-based listener and I know I'm distracted or upset or frustrated, what I can say is, now's not a good time for me to listen, but you still matter to me. When can I schedule time to listen to you, to give you the feedback you need to feel as though I heard you, right? That's a way of using your listening pattern in a way that's going to help that person feel heard. Some people are people-based listeners. They listen because they understand that the relationship they have with someone matters, and they want the person that they're talking to feel connected to, feel heard, right? So they listen because they understand listening is an opportunity to create relationship, right? Or sometimes, like, in a bad way, people-oriented people will use their listening as a way to punish folks for problems they're having because, like, they're wanting to communicate the relationship is damaged, right? Then there's also content-oriented listeners, right? These are people that are trying to listen to what's being said because they want to understand that's being said. So what you need to do is take some time to really understand your habitual pattern of listening behavior. Are you an action-based person who might want to fix things? Are you a time-based thing? I can only listen for so long, or I need to listen now, or I can give you 20 hot minutes. Are you a people-oriented listener? People-oriented listeners are probably those people who find themselves having people telling them their life stories in the grocery store aisle, right? Content-oriented listeners are folks that are really curious about getting a sense of what are we talking about and why are we talking about what we're talking about. Again, so if you're interested in this thing, I did create a little bit more videos about the listening styles that I embedded in here. So if you're curious, you can always play this video about the different listening styles. I think we'll take some time to listen to that.
Next. Are you even listening to me? These are all widely used phrases that have one word in common, the word listen. So let's talk about listen. According to dictionary.com, listen means to give attention with the ear, to attend closely for the purpose of hearing. Well, listening goes beyond hearing, and that you take into what's being said and listen to it and put more out. So listening is something that we do every day, whether it's in a classroom when your teacher is talking, listening to your friends talk about some aspect of their lives when you guys are going out in social situations, or even listening to someone talk on the phone about something that happened in a place that you're not at currently. These are all situations in which we are listening to at least one other person talk about something. But did you know that there are different listening styles? According to Barker and Watson, there are 4 main listening styles that a person can have. These are people-oriented, content-oriented, action-oriented, and time-oriented. To better help you understand each style, here's an example of a situation in which one person is listening to another. Let's say your friend Susie just got dumped by her boyfriend Pete. She is talking about how he just dumped her out of nowhere and didn't even tell her why, and she is devastated. If you are a people-oriented listener, you will be heavily focused on Susie's feelings and emotions. You will also be very empathetic of her situation and offer her comfort and words of support. If you are a content-oriented listener, then instead you will be more focused on what is actually being said and focus on the details and facts at hand. In this case, you could try and ask Susie many questions about why she really thinks it is that Pete dumped her and get down into the situation. If you're an action-oriented listener, then it's all about what will be done after the conversation. You'll be interested in concrete descriptions of what is to follow. So you're going to ask Susie questions like, what are you going to do next? When are you going to do it? You're all interested in what she's going to do afterwards. Lastly, if you're a time-oriented listener, then you only have a certain amount of time set out to listen to Susie. You will want short answers to questions that are straight to the point so the conversation won't take too much time. And your eyes can also always be on a clock so that you never go over your schedule. So what kind of listener are you? Next time you're in a conversation with
So really consider that, and self-monitor to get a sense of what is your listening pattern, what is your listening style. So one of the next things we're going to do is kind of talk a little bit more about good and bad listening, so we can come to understand that and get what the repercussions are for us.
It's a core communication skill, and it's critical to the success of our professional and our personal lives. And yet, it's something that most of us would benefit hugely from improving. Generally, we're probably not as good at listening as we like to think we are, and yet listening is where we really connect emotionally with people and engage people in conversation.
One thing I'd mention real quick, if you think you're an awesome listener, ask someone that you're close with to rate you on a 1 to 10 on how good you are. Hopefully you'll come out higher than you think, but sadly most folks end up lower than they expect.
So here are 5 listening styles for you to check out and see where you think you operate most often. The first of those styles is ignoring. Not really listening at all. In fact, not having any intention to really listen to what the person has to say. Now, hopefully this is not something you do often, because clearly it's pretty rude. And there are times when all of us have some people we want to ignore. But actually, it's because we're distracted, we're doing other things, or genuinely we don't really want to hear what the other person is saying. It has been said that some people are listening only for the other person to pause and breathe so that they can then make their own point. And that would be an example of ignoring. Next up, pretending. In other words, going along with it, humming, wanting to look like you're listening. This is something I come across an awful lot in my professional life. Call me an old cynic, but I think if you've ever heard of active listening, the notion where people nod and grunt and generally give the impression they're listening. Now, there is more to active listening than that, but in essence, people are getting much better at looking like they're listening, but they're not actually listening. So that's the pretending style. How often do you do that? This is followed by selective listening. Actually listening only for what you want to hear. And if you're asking follow-up questions, really only asking questions leading to the place that you want to go. Now, any of you in long-term relationships might relate to selective listening, because we often accuse our partners and friends of doing just that. But actually, it's deeper than that. We're really good in our brains at zooming in to hear only what we want to hear. So we leave a bit of our listening, our brain, focusing on what people are saying, but we've almost pre-programmed ourselves to hear a trigger word, what we want to hear, and then suddenly we rejoin the conversation. So selective listening is more subtle than it might at first appear. You may not be doing it consciously, you may actually subconsciously be just listening for a trigger phrase so that you can pile in and again either tell the other person why they're wrong or start to pitch your particular perspective. Fourth, we have attentive listening. Now, the clue's in the title, actually paying attention to what the person is saying, listening to their specific words and phrases, how they're saying what they're saying. Listening is also about observation, paying attention to their body language. Is it matching in line with what they're saying? So attentive listening is where you are starting to focus the vast majority of your conscious and subconscious awareness on what the person is actually saying. The final style is empathetic listening. Listening to genuinely understand, to really know where somebody's coming from, following up and asking them questions that encourage them in a non-judgmental way to not lead to your place, but to just expand on their thoughts, their ideas. It's a really powerful communication technique, and most of us are not used to experiencing it that often. So when we do, we have a tendency to open up in a more genuine way. So empathetic listening is a really powerful listening style.
So I definitely would recommend continuing listening to this video because I think it's fantastic. I think counselors are trained in that empathetic listening. I think when we're at our best, we can be empathetic listeners. But too often we fall into other pitfalls of listening, and I wanted to go over some of those too. So one of the things we need to be aware of is incompetent listening. So we heard about some of these things already. There's selective listening, only tuning into the parts that we like. There's eavesdropping, which is kind of like tuning into stuff that's not for you. There's pseudo listening. What? Crazy. That's bananas, but you're not really listening. There's aggressive listening, so you're listening for something so you can jump on and attack the other person. And then there's narcissistic listening. Again, just listening for WIIFM, what's in it for me, radio station. Selective listening, again, is kind of like taking on only those bits and those informations that are immediately salient to you, right? That's only tuning into maybe what you're interested in and not being so curious about like what you can do and how listening to this person in an empathetic way might take you to a deeper relationship and seeing and understanding that this is a bid. Selective listening is like, oh, well, this is only about the topic or the topic that I'm interested in, right? Remember, if you want to overcome selective listening, practice techniques to enhance your intention and mental bracket away those things that you only find interested in. Again, if you want to learn a little bit more about the selective listening, check out this little video. It's a cute little fun video about Ken and Barbie, I think, and how they practice selective listening rather than deep understanding of one another. Next thing is eavesdropping. This is intentionally and systematically over and over again setting up situations or scenarios where you listen to private conversations because you want the tea, right? Like you're wanting to know situations and circumstances, and usually you're not wanting to know just so you know. You want to know so you can tell other people. Eavesdropping is both inappropriate as well as unethical. And we need to recognize those things, right? If you want to watch a really funny video about our tendency to eavesdrop or tune into like juicy or interesting pieces of other things, check out this little short video. It's how we kind of fall into that trap. And if you are a person that engages in gossip and you know it's not the best thing in the world, right? Like acknowledging gossip's not the best thing in the world is important, right? Because look, if I talk to you about gossip about somebody else, I probably gossip about you and other spaces with other people, right? Gossip is a form of poison, and I think we need to acknowledge that gossip is poison and challenge ourselves to stop drinking it. So if you don't think gossip is poison or problematic, check out this little video because I think it gives solid reasons why this is problematic and why we need to intentionally set our ability to overcome this problem. Or at least being like, this doesn't concern me, this isn't my issue. Another thing that you can do to break the pattern of gossip is when people come to you with gossip, those sweet little morsels of gossip, just be like, wow, it really sounds like Troy's in a difficult situation. I hope he gets better. You know, like you kind of become intentionally boring in a way where you're hoping for goodwill for the person that's in a space of struggle. And then perhaps gossip comes to you less often because you're not responding in an interesting way. Another thing is pseudo listening, just pretending to listen. What? Okay, that's crazy. Bananas. Too often we do this to children. It's funny because like we pseudo listen to people that are trying to talk to us because they want to see if we care. One of the reasons why I got this position, why I'm here talking to you today, is because Suzanne, your COO, talked to me about how she needed to tune in with her toddler. Like her toddler was talking to her, and when I said like, all your toddler needs to know is that you care and that you're really tuned in. And once your toddler knows you're cared and you're really tuned in and they matter, they actually go find something else to do. It's funny because we extend the impatient listening process by pretending to listen rather than truly focusing and showing that we care. If we really focus and showed we care, they'd know we care, they'd be confident that we care, and they move on to do something different. But instead we lengthen it by pretending, and we just kind of make things worse on ourselves. Great example of pseudo listening in this little video. So do check that out if you're interested and need that opportunity. Another thing we need to look out for is aggressive listening. This is also known as ambushing. It's listening solely to find an opportunity to attack. And so sometimes we're listening because we're angry and we're upset and we want to find something to jump on with somebody else. Yes, you are listening, but it's not the best way to listen because like you're seeing the person as a problem rather than understanding you and this person have a problem that you could like both focus on together. I can talk more about that in conflict if you're interested in me in talking about how to resolve conflict more. And there are some people in the world that are just provocateurs. These are people who post online messages that are designed to annoy others. There's also trolls, right? Trolls exist on the internet and in person. They try to bait you into arguments, or they try to bait you into getting upset or angry, or when you're already upset, they try to bait you into getting more angry. Don't take the bait. Like, we want to move to spaces where we can like feel our emotions, but then kind of just like allow the fire of the emotion to die over time. Sometimes we vent and try to add more air into the emotion, and it just makes the fire bigger. Sometimes we try to bury the fire before it's done burning, and then it's not really worked its way through yet. So look out for the trolls. Watch out for trolls no matter where they are. And if you're a troll, please attempt to stop doing that behavior. It's not helping you, and it's not helping others. Another great video for how you can look for and recognize aggressive listening when and where it happens. And lastly, narcissistic listening. This is self-absorbed listening. This is listening where the perpetrator ignores what the person is trying to say and tries to redirect the conversation back to themselves, right? So if you are dealing with a narcissistic listener, don't take it personally. It's their own struggle, right? Like, it's a pattern that they need to work on by themselves, right? Sometimes we need to learn how to set boundaries. Again, setting boundaries is a really long, complicated process, and I can help you with those things later in another space. Also, attempt to advocate for yourself, and then also like create a healthy distance between you and the narcissist. But remember, we all listen to WIIFM way too often, and we need to be aware of the threat of WIIFM. It's not about you, right? And you can kind of make it about you and understanding that you care about this person and that this relationship is important to you, right? And so now it's maybe not about you, it's about us. So you can, like, if you have a narcissistic tendency, make it about understanding this relationship matters and hearing this person is important to you and them. And that you want to get to a space where you listen and truly validate the other person because, frankly, you're in a relationship with them to some degree, right? So let's avoid the narcissistic listening. And then the last thing I want to leave you with is, I'm not going to play this video. I think it's fantastic. It's Thich Nhat Hanh that talks about loving speech and deep listening. I think really when it's time to show people that we love them, we show them by listening and we show them by remembering what they have to say and taking the fact that they're willing to share these thoughts and ideas with us with a sense of care and attention. The fact that someone is willing to talk to you in some ways is kind of like a little miracle. They care about you. They're interested in you. They want to hear what you have to think. They want to, they're sharing intimate parts of who they are in their life with you. This is incredibly important. And to bring it back to why it's important in this setting in particular, so doctors and nurses all have to deal with malpractice, right? Doctors and nurses who have clientele or patients where the clientele and patients feel like they're heard, even when there is an issue of malpractice, don't tend to sue doctors and nurses and offices where the clients feel listened to. Why is that? Is because they feel as though the people that take care of them actually do care about them. So when a mistake happens, they see it as just that, a mistake. Whereas if you don't listen and you just like put things on people, now they're much more upset because they're like, don't feel heard and there wasn't trust to begin with. And so malpractice goes up when people don't feel heard, listened to, or paid attention to. But I want you to understand this idea because I think we fail to acknowledge that we're in deep relationship with people over and over again all the time. And whether it's you and your coworkers, and if you listen to them or tune into what they have to say, right? Coworkers are clients too. Coworkers are people that really matter to us, and how do we invest in them by really listening? Or if it's patients, right? Like trying to remember a patient when they come in. Like everybody wants the Cheers experience, right? Where you walk into a place and they're like, hey, it's you again. I'm so excited to see you again. I'm so glad you're here. Every opportunity of an interaction is an opportunity to be in a relationship with someone. And listening is such a critical way and place that we can really connect with someone and show them that they matter. Like our active listening is proof that we love someone and proof that this person matters to us. And again, when I say love, I'm not talking about sexual, amorous love. I'm talking about like a general love and respect that we can relay throughout all humankind, right? Like showing and recognizing that people have importance is critical. And I think it makes us better humans too. But it's hard work, and we have to recognize it's hard work. And the more we flex the listening muscle, the better and stronger the listening muscle gets. And the more the people around us that we care about know we care about them. And when we have those strong relationships on those days that we're not doing so great, the relationship trust is high. And listening is a big part of creating trust and having a sense of trust in others. Remember, every time we listen is a bid for connection. And seeing and recognizing each opportunity as a place, an opportunity to respond to that bid for connection is going to make a big, big difference. Listening is loving. And we don't know that we care till you show we care. And really like adapting your listening position, giving feedback, making sure you remember, paraphrasing what was said to you to make sure that you know that you are accurate in what you think you heard was being said is a critical part of this thing. And this is not going to be a thing that just serves you here at Affiliated Dermatology. This is going to be a thing that serves you in every way, space, and portion of your life, right? If you can actively listen and show people that you care, they're more likely to actively listen and show that they care to you, right? To get what we want, we have to pay what we would like to give in kind, right? Like if we want something, we have to give it away. If we want people to listen to us, we have to give it away, and we have to pay the price to listen and listen deep, deep every single time. And when we do, we're more likely to find the people that will listen to us in kind. We teach people how we want to be treated in every single interaction we have, right? Like, are you willing to give what you want to get? And if you are willing to give what you want to get, you're more likely to have it reciprocated to you. And people that aren't willing to give you what you give them in return, those relationships will actually fade over time because most people aren't willing to pay the price over and over again. And there's something about being around someone that asks you to elevate your humanity to the best possible you, where if people aren't in a space where they're willing to pay that price, the relationship tends to dissolve because they can't pay the price of being that type of human, and being around you is hard for them. And so the relationship tends to dissipate when they can't give you those things because it hurts them to be around you and treat you as less than. And so that's kind of my argument of why you want to like listen, even if someone's not being the best listener in return. Understand that if you can actively listen and get to that level of empathetic listening every single time, that even if they can't rise to where you want to go, eventually that relationship will fade. Or you will teach them how to treat you, and that relationship will greatly improve or benefit. So remember, listening is loving. Every bid to listen and connect with another human being is a bid to make that relationship better. It's not about the sale belts. It's about the relationship, right? Can we show the other person we're listening to that they matter? And that's the goal. That's the challenge, right? I love to say that I listen to my partner like I'm hearing her speak for the first time, but I fail on that. And honestly, like, who do I listen worst with most often? The people I love the most, because I think they'll forgive me. And that's not the way we want to treat people. Remember, when you're going home, like, and you're sitting in your car before you walk in that door, do you want to give the best of you to the people that you love the most? Or do you want to give what's left of you to the people that are behind that door? Maybe take a second. Take a breath, sit in your car for 2 minutes, slow down. Remember how much these people mean to you. Do it before you go into work, right? Sit in your car for a second, ground yourself, recognize you're doing important work. You're making people feel beautiful. You're making like people change how they see themselves. Like you're making the biggest organ in their body like glow. Like you're doing something important, and recognize that importance before you walk into work or before you walk into your house. Recognize your power to listen to others is a gift. And if we can see and recognize the fact that listening is loving and step up to the responsibility of they don't know we care till we show we care, we can have working relationships, we can have family relationships, love relationships, work relationships, clientele that love to see us every day. And that is going to come from us. But we got to rise to the challenge of attempting to give that away every day. With that, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you get a lot out of this. If you need to relearn this is what the podcasts are for. Take some time, listen to it. If you've heard this before, listen to it on 2 times speed. Listen to it again and again, and it will be one of those things that you start to adapt to or get better at every single time. Remember, those videos are there available for you in the slides, and I hope you learned something and I've given you some tools to love on people a little bit better, remembering that listening truly is loving. And with that, take care. And I think I have one other podcast or talk that I'll be doing with you about calm, confident leadership. So I can't wait to be in your ears another space and time. Take care. Have a wonderful day. And we'll talk to you hopefully again and when you listen to this again. Take care. Bye-bye.